Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I wish all parents a life full of happiness, surrounded by love and care for their children. Today, I want to share with you a story from my 3-year journey as a volunteer, something that deeply impacted my perspective on parenthood. There was one time I volunteered at a farm run by a young American couple. The husband was a painter, and the wife organized cycling races in the countryside. On that day, the wife wasn't home, and the husband was taking care of their 8-month-old baby named Allah. While I was working in the kitchen, I noticed that the baby had crawled dangerously close to a heater, just about 2 meters away. I immediately called out, "Look out!" But the husband calmly replied, "Don't worry, go ahead and do your thing. I'll keep an eye on the baby." About a minute later, there was a scream. The baby had touched the metal grate around the heater, which was extremely hot, and had burned her hands badly. It took 2 hours before the baby finally calmed down. That evening at dinner, I couldn't help but ask the father about his approach to parenting. He responded, "You know, we really appreciate your concern and care for our family, but we have a different way of raising our child. We want her to experience things, even if it's painful or challenging, because that's how she'll learn. If we keep stopping her from everything, when we're not around, she might run toward the heater anyway and hurt herself even worse. We want her to understand the consequences of her actions." That response struck me deeply, and as I reflected on it, I realized how much this philosophy clashed with the way many Eastern, especially Vietnamese, parents raise their children. Often, we love our children so much that we try to protect them from every hardship, every mistake, and even every challenge, to the point where we might end up doing more harm than good. Is that really true love? Is it truly caring for our children to intervene in every aspect of their lives, even when they haven't asked for help, or even when there isn't a problem to begin with? I've asked myself these questions for years, seeking answers in meditation, therapy, and various discussions about the suffering and struggles between parents and children. Eventually, I realized the answer. As Eastern parents, especially as Vietnamese parents, we are so rich in love and emotions, but sometimes we don't consider the consequences of our overprotectiveness. In the relationship between parents and children, love is sometimes too much, to the point where it stifles the child's growth. Many times, this overprotection stems from the parent's own unmet needs in childhood. Perhaps they were neglected or didn't receive enough love, so they try to make up for it by pouring all their love into their children. This unfulfilled desire for affection continues throughout their adult lives, and when they have children, they want to give them everything they missed out on. But in the process, they might overwhelm their children with too much love. It could also be that parents are overly emotional, relying too much on their feelings, instead of using their rational minds to understand what kind of love is appropriate. How much is too much? What harm does excessive love cause? Parents who overly love their children might also lack deep emotional connections with those around them, perhaps not fully satisfied with their relationship with their spouse. Especially those who have experienced a failed marriage, they might channel all their emotional energy into their children, using them as their emotional support system. But the truth is, children don't need that much confirmation of love. They are beings created not just by their parents, but by generations of ancestors and nature itself. Every child has an immense survival instinct, and that instinct can only fully manifest when they are given the freedom to grow on their own, to be who they truly are, without constant interference. The sooner they are allowed to express themselves, the better. Child development experts say that true personality formation happens between the ages of 13 and 25. And while we can continue to evolve beyond that, the core of who we are tends to form during these years. But if parents intervene too much during this time, constantly controlling, guiding, and cushioning their children from failure, the child might never develop the resilience needed to face life on their own. It could result in what we now call the mommy's boy syndrome, where a young man, even in his 20s or 30s, may have a decent job and be somewhat intelligent but lacks the maturity to navigate life's complexities. He might avoid responsibility, focusing only on himself. Where does this come from? From mothers who love their children too much, from parents who do everything for their children, deciding what's right and wrong, and intervening in every aspect of their lives. In the end, these children never had the opportunity to grow, to experience failure, or to learn from their own mistakes. It's heartbreaking to think that parents who love their children so deeply might be unintentionally hindering their growth. No parent ever wants to harm their child. But sometimes in our desire to protect, we fail to see that true love doesn't mean keeping them in a bubble. It's about giving them the space to learn, fall, and rise again. A parent's role is to be there to support, but not to carry the burden of the child's every step. The tragic part is that parents often fail to recognize when they've crossed that line, when love has morphed into control. They believe that they are doing the right thing by being there constantly for their children, but in reality, they are preventing their children from experiencing the world as it truly is. The world isn't kind, it's challenging, and it demands resilience. If a child doesn't develop this resilience early on, they will find themselves unprepared for life's difficulties. There's also a psychological toll that comes with overprotectiveness. When a parent gives a child too much attention, too much affection, the child might begin to feel suffocated. The child begins to doubt their ability to handle things on their own. They may also begin to feel guilty, as if they are constantly failing their parents, who have invested so much in them. This creates a toxic cycle where the child, while loved, struggles to find their own identity and place in the world. At some point, parents must recognize that their children are individuals, not extensions of themselves. They are not here to fulfill the emotional gaps or unfulfilled dreams of their parents. Each child has a unique purpose in life, one that's shaped by their experiences, their choices, and their own struggles. Parents can't live their children's lives for them. So as parents, what is the right approach? How can we love our children without smothering them? The answer lies in letting go. It doesn't mean abandoning them or being cold. It means giving them the freedom to experience life in their own way, to make their own mistakes, and to learn from them. As much as it hurts to see our children fail or struggle, those moments are critical to their development. It's through those challenges that they learn how to rise up, how to face adversity, and how to take responsibility for their own lives. This concept is particularly difficult for Eastern parents, especially those in Vietnam. Our culture places a great emphasis on family, and the bond between parents and children is incredibly strong. In many ways, this is beautiful, but it can also be restrictive. Parents often see themselves as the ultimate protectors, the ones who know what's best. But this belief, while well-intentioned, can lead to an imbalance. The child may never be able to truly break free and become their own person. At some point, parents need to step back and allow their children the space to grow. It's not easy, I know. It feels almost impossible to watch your child struggle, to see them face disappointment and failure. But we need to remember that these are the moments that build their character, that shape them into strong, independent individuals. If we constantly shield them from the harsh realities of life, we deprive them of the opportunity to grow and learn. When children reach their teenage years, especially between the ages of 13 and 25, they need autonomy. They need the freedom to make their own choices, even if those choices lead to mistakes. It's during these years that they solidify their values, their beliefs, and their identity. If parents intervene too much during this time, it can cause long-term harm. The child may never develop the confidence to stand on their own, to trust their own judgment, and to face life's challenges with resilience. Parents often think they are helping by making decisions for their children, by stepping in and taking control. But in reality, this just stifles the child's growth. They begin to feel like they are incapable of making decisions on their own. They lose trust in their own abilities, and this can lead to a lack of independence and responsibility. There is also the risk of the child becoming overly dependent on their parents. This is particularly common in cases where the parents have been overly protective or controlling. The child may become emotionally dependent, unable to make decisions or solve problems without the constant guidance of their parents. This creates a cycle of dependence that's hard to break, and it prevents the child from maturing. So, what's the solution? The solution is to recognize when to step back. It's about trusting your child to make their own decisions, to handle their own challenges, and to learn from their mistakes. It's about being there for them when they need support, but not stepping in to solve every problem. Parents need to learn to let go and allow their children the space to grow into the individuals they are meant to be. The process of letting go isn't easy, and it's not something that happens overnight. It requires a lot of self-awareness and introspection. Parents must understand that their role is to guide, not to control. They must accept that their children will face hardships and that those hardships are a natural part of life. But they must also trust that their children have the inner strength to overcome those challenges. In the end, true love for our children is not about protecting them from every hardship. It's about giving them the tools they need to navigate life's challenges on their own. It's about trusting them to learn, grow, and become the person they are meant to be. And most importantly, it's about letting go when the time comes, so that they can step into their own lives and take responsibility for their own future. As parents, our ultimate goal should be to raise children who are capable of standing on their own, independent and strong, equipped to handle the challenges life will throw at them. But this doesn't mean we abandon them or stop caring. It means we shift our focus from controlling every aspect of their lives to being their support system when they truly need it. It's essential to understand that every child is different. Each child has their own personality, their own journey to go on, and their own path to discover. No matter how much we may want to shape them in our image or push them down the path we think is best, we have to acknowledge that they must find their own way. This is where the role of a parent transitions from a guide to a supporter. One thing I've learned from the Eastern perspective on parenting is that it's deeply rooted in love, but sometimes that love manifests as overprotection, which can ultimately prevent the child from becoming a resilient, independent individual. Parents often feel the weight of their love and want to give their children everything they never had. However, this can backfire. When you give your child too much love without allowing them to face the natural consequences of their actions, you prevent them from developing the skills they need to cope with the world. It's important to remember that children are not our possessions. They are their own people, and they have their own unique potential. Parents have a significant role in nurturing that potential, but that role should focus on providing guidance, not micromanaging. Children learn through experience. They need the freedom to explore, to make mistakes, and to grow from those experiences. While it's tough to stand back and watch your child struggle, it's equally important to allow them to handle their own battles and emerge stronger. What happens when parents intervene too much? They unintentionally foster a sense of dependence in their children. If a child grows up with everything planned for them, with every move carefully controlled by their parents, they may feel incapable of handling situations on their own. And that's a problem that can last well into adulthood. The child may lack the confidence to make decisions, take risks, or lead their own life, because they've been conditioned to believe they cannot succeed without their parents' intervention. This doesn't serve the child in the long run. There's also something important that we must recognize about our role as parents. We are not their saviors. We are not meant to shield them from every failure or hardship. Sometimes it's in the failure itself that children learn the most valuable lessons. They learn about their own strength, resilience, and ability to persevere. And while it's incredibly hard to watch them go through these moments, it's part of their journey. For example, a child who fails at something important, like a school exam or a sports competition, will feel disappointed. But that feeling of disappointment will push them to do better next time. They'll learn about persistence, dedication, and self-improvement. If parents step in and fix the situation before the child has the chance to experience those feelings, then the child misses out on an important lesson. They miss out on growing emotionally and mentally. The hardest part of parenting is knowing when to let go. It's knowing when your child is ready to handle life on their own and when you need to step back and trust them. This can be a difficult and emotional process, but it's necessary for both the parent and the child. If you continue to intervene at every turn, you create an unhealthy dependency. If you step back at the right time, you allow your child to thrive on their own terms, using the skills and wisdom they've developed throughout their life. As your child grows, so too must your relationship evolve. When they are young, they need your constant care, your protection, and your guidance. But as they enter adolescence and young adulthood, they need more independence. They need to experience the world and develop their own values. And as parents, we must respect that. We must recognize that our job isn't to make every decision for them or to manage their lives. It's to be there when they need us, to support them when they ask for help, but to let them navigate their own path. What this means in practice is that as your child becomes a teenager and eventually an adult, you should slowly decrease your involvement in their day-to-day life. Yes, they may still need your support, but they should be responsible for their own choices. If they fall, it's okay. They will get back up and they will learn from it. This gradual process of releasing control is a sign of true love. It's the kind of love that respects their autonomy, their individuality, and their future. When your child reaches adulthood, their life is theirs to live. It's no longer your responsibility to dictate what they do, where they go, or who they become. Your role shifts to that of a guide, offering wisdom and support, but never forcing them down a path they don't want to take. By then, your child will have developed the tools they need to make their own decisions. Your job is to help them feel empowered to use those tools, not to control them. Lastly, remember that love doesn't mean always being there to fix things. It doesn't mean rescuing your child from every problem. Real love means stepping aside when it's necessary, trusting that they have what it takes to handle life's challenges. And when they fall, as they inevitably will, you're there to help them back up with empathy, understanding, and encouragement. That's when your role as a parent truly shines. We as parents have to let go at the right time so our children can become the people they are meant to be. They'll face challenges, they'll make mistakes, and they'll learn from all of it. But in the end, they'll be better for it. They'll grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And in the process, they'll know that you loved them not because you tried to control their lives, but because you gave them the freedom to live their own.